Welcome to the Please Suck Less podcast, a podcast where one guy shares his views of where the fire service can improve. Thanks for listening. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Please Suck Less podcast. I'm your host, David Polikoff. So today I want to talk about a couple of different things that have been on my mind over the last couple of weeks. Many that know me know that I talk about performance when it comes to in the fire service, how your people are performing. And I've often said that if your people are not performing, then the issue falls squarely on the shoulders of the station officer. And as we move up through the ranks, if your station officers aren't performing, then it's that next line supervisor who is to blame, which could be the battalion chief. And then as you get more into your staff, you're moving into your senior staff. If your battalion chiefs aren't performing because their shifts aren't performing, then it's the assistant chief or whatever that next line supervisor is after the battalion chief, and then the next line supervisor, deputy chief. And ultimately, if the fire department is in shambles, if your organization is in shambles, then it's the boss, whether it be the fire chief or the president, CEO of a corporation, has to be bear the sole responsibility for the team just flat out sucking. So how I used to kind of break it down in simple terms, if your people suck, then it's the officer's fault. If the officer sucks, it's the battalion chief's fault in the fire service. And if the battalion chief sucks, then it's the assistant chief. And if the assistant chief sucks, then it's the deputy chief, all the way up to the head of the organization. So everybody needs to be held accountable for their actions. There are few exceptions. Obviously, you just have some people that don't perform, but those individuals should be there should be documentation that they aren't performing. I often tell people the hardest thing we do in the fire service is discipline, because there's a lot that has to go into discipline. But if you have people that aren't performing and you're not doing anything about it, as in being that officer and taking the steps, documentation, things like that, counseling reports, whatever it is, to help that employee improve, then you are the problem. You're allowing poor performance to happen under your watch. There's nothing that's going to make you lose credibility quicker than or respect quicker than allowing people to walk all over you or allowing your shift to underperform. And then it's not fair to the rest of the people that have to pick up your slack. So if you do have those underperforming people, then you need to take those extra steps to clean out the dead weeds. We don't need that kind of crap in the fire service or in a business. We all know that one person, one toxic person can ruin a shift, can destroy a shift, can destroy the reputation of a respected officer. I've known officers that I've respected for most of my career, and something changes inside of them where they allow individuals to get away with murder or to just run amok on a shift. And it saddens me because I lose what I saw in that supervisor, or what I saw in that potential mentor, that they aren't what I thought they were. So as a boss, you need to make sure that your people are performing. If they suck, you need to do something about it. If you don't do anything about it, then you need to go. Your boss needs to do something about you, and so forth. Nobody ever said this job was easy. Nobody ever said that discipline was easy. But the only way that you can either correct behaviors or eventually get rid of the person that is underperforming is by documenting. So bottom line is that you just can't always blame the individual if you have an officer or you have a boss allowing that to happen under their watch. The guilt falls on the shoulders of the supervisor all the way up to the fire chief. Anybody turning a blind eye to that is doing a huge disservice to the organization. So that's my take on poor performing employees or even poor performing shifts. You have to take that leadership role, and sometimes you got to be the bad guy. That's just the way it is. One of the other things I want to talk about is you have these people that constantly want to point out the problems. They constantly want to point a finger at, well, this isn't going to work or that doesn't work. Here's why it's not going to work. But they never offer any solutions. And it's so easy to point out problems or potential problems, but to never have a solution just makes you sound like a whining asshole. So when I was a battalion chief before I retired, I would always tell my captains, it's okay to bring me a problem, but with that, bring me a solution. Even if you were at 80% of a solution, that's something that I could work with where we could come together and figure out what the solution is to a particular problem. But I also wanted them to be able to articulate the problem intelligently, not just come in whining. I don't deal with feelings. I only deal with facts. And people that know me know I say that quite often. And they're the old saying, facts don't care about your feelings. But at the end of the day, if you or your people see a problem, bring that solution to it as well. Nothing made me happier than to have the captain come into my office and bring up a issue and say, and this is what I'm going to do to correct that. Are you good with that? So basically, all they were looking for is my okay for them to put their plan together. And even if they said, hey, here's something that's going on, this is what I'm thinking. I just want to run it by you to make sure it's okay. I might be able to cover some of their blind spots, and together we could come up with a solution. But just to point out problems, those people are just tiring. There's nothing that saps the energy out of a shift, out of a boss, than somebody constantly bringing up problems. And a lot of times the problems aren't even problems. They're more of they don't know the entire situation, and what they perceive as a problem really isn't. Or even if they think it's a problem, it could already have been in the works to being worked out. I know that I've had people come to me pointing out issues and dissatisfied with a policy or dissatisfied with an information bulletin that came out, pointing out all the fallacies and the issues and how it's not going to work. And what it had come down to is they didn't even bother to read the entire policy or didn't even bother to read the entire bulletin. They're only getting half information, or even worse, they're taking the word from somebody else who's complaining and they're just spewing hearsay. And at the end of the day, they look like an idiot. So when it comes to problem solving, believe me, the supervisors that are out there want nothing more than their subordinates, whether if they're a battalion chief, their captains, their lieutenants, even their firefighters, to be able to look at an issue or look at a potential problem and come up with a solution. That's all part of decision making. We have a hard time in the fire service making decisions. And I still to this day don't understand why, because I don't see people getting yelled at for making decisions unless you're just flat out poor decisions. So that's how you strengthen somebody, by not only allowing them to make a decision, but to enact their solution to a potential problem. You will find that if you encourage people to be able to work out their issues, they will be more inclined to continue to better the fire service or better the organization wherever it is that you're working. And one of the last things that I want to talk about is I want to talk about quiet employees, or employees that you in your mind might not grasp the job or exude the enthusiasm for the job that maybe you have. I'm seeing that a lot more, and how that manifests itself is, firefighter Jones, he's only here for a paycheck. But when you really sit down and you talk to some of these newer members that are coming in, they're here for the job, but they're also here for to do the job, to be part of the shift. Just because they don't eat and breathe the fire service when they get off in the morning and they go home doesn't make them any less of a valuable employee. So what I would ask you to do is think twice before you take a look at somebody just because they don't think or approach or feel about the job the way you do. They are still very much in tune with doing the job. And I think if you watch their actions on the fire ground, they're pretty good with their skills. They go into burning buildings. They go in and take care of patient care if they're riding an ambulance or doing EMS work. But don't just dismiss somebody just because they don't have all the enthusiasm or all the talk of the job 24/7, 365. The younger generation just approach it a little bit differently, but it doesn't make them any more of a firefighter. So all these things that I've talked about today, where we just talked about quiet employees, poor performing employees, or even employees pointing out problems but not providing solution. All of that negativity is a reflection on you as a leader in the organization, that you are not giving your people what they need. They're lacking something. Whether it be they're afraid to make a decision, they're afraid to come up with a solution to an issue, they're afraid to speak out at the dinner table, they're afraid to just talk freely about stuff, they're afraid to have respectful conversations about things. All that points to the leadership is that you're not giving your employees something that they need. So my advice to you, get out there. Like I say 1,000 times, get out there, talk to your people, take a pulse, say that a lot, find out what's going on in the organization, encourage your people to talk, encourage them to make decisions. And at the end of the day, you'll find that when you hold people accountable, you hold yourself accountable, and you allow people to grow as employees, you're going to have a smoother running organization, be it private sector or in the fire service. So thanks a lot for listening. Remember, suck less, do better. Thanks for listening to the Please Suck Less podcast. If you like what you hear, you can send us a note through Instagram at Please Suck Less. There you can just send us a message. Thanks for listening.